Thank you and good afternoon. Thank you very much for that elaborate introduction, Eugenia. His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by my colleague in the Federal Executive Council, the Vice President, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. Let me try to truncate the very extensive protocol that has already been established, but not before recognizing the heads of state that we have here with us from Liberia, Sao Tome and Principe, and the ex-heads of state and prime ministers, including, of course, Mr. Boris Johnson, former UK Prime Minister, and others. Let me recognize our host, our amiable host, Governor Hope Uzodimma, and his dear wife. Governor Hope wears many hats. Today, he's in a business suit, but at the same time, he's very much our renewed hope ambassador. He's our mobilizer at the grassroots level. He's chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum. So he wears many hats. He has the energy, and as we have seen, he has the capacity. And we thank you for the warm reception you have accorded us today. Let me quickly recognize the former Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Ban Ki-moon. And we have here the National Assembly, the senators, the House of Reps. Of course, we have our governors, and the long list included the governors of Nasarawa, Ondo, Ekiti, Edo, amongst others. And let me, while using the well-worn Nigerian phrase, all protocols duly observed, remember that we are at a business summit. We are talking about partnership. The private sector, which is 90% of the economy, is key. We're happy to have Alhaji Aliko Dangote. We're happy to have Professor Benedict Orama, Leo Staneke, amongst others from the private sector as an important part of this conversation. Your Excellency, you've given us a tour de force, and we are convinced. And let me say that on the journey in the infrastructure revolution that you talked about, that you undertaken since 2020, it was evident. Dual carriageways, the median wonderfully manicured, not a pothole in sight. That is the way to lay the foundation to attract investors. Very well done, Governor Hope Uzodimma. But you know, the icing on the cake for us, when you tell us that we are looking at 24/7 electricity, that is the real game changer. And I must say, Governor Hope, the basis for you to be able to aspire to provide the people of Imo with electricity 24/7 is because under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the game has changed. There has been reform and there has been liberation in that sector, such that the government monopoly was broken. Any state that wants to can generate, can transmit, and can distribute power to its people, probably in conjunction with the private sector. But let me say that I am very deeply honored to be part of this economic and investment summit. And of course, Imo State, over 5 million people, is endowed with tremendous natural resources. We have heard from the governor. Your title, Unlocking the Economic Potential of Imo through Partnership, Investment and Innovation, it captures precisely the direction of economic policy under the administration of President Tinubu. And you know, you've talked about reforms. We know that the impact of these reforms on the Nigerian economy is clear, is measurable. The strategic role of the states and the subnational governments is driving growth. The expansive financial intervention available to businesses and households. And finally, I'll also talk a little bit about the Imo's potential, all very quickly. So we know the economy is growing faster than it has for a decade or so across all sectors, particularly industry, particularly agriculture is much faster. So that what we have now is that from about 2% growth before this administration, it is now 4% per annum growth is what we're looking at in the Nigerian economy. So Nigeria's economy is moving, and it's moving in the right direction. But our target is not 4%. The target set for us is 7% per annum, because that's more than double the rate of population growth. It means we'll be lifting millions of Nigerians out of poverty. And we need scaling of private and public investment to get there. And that's why we are gathered here today. Of course, you know the important fiscal outcomes that have followed from the reform process. Chiefly, there has been a doubling of funds available to the states. There has been an 86% increase in funds available, a 66% increase in funds available to the local governments. And accordingly, the federal government has also benefited from correcting the distortions in the economy and allowing revenues to flow directly to the government purse. Inflation is being tamed. Consecutively, inflation has declined to, in the last quarter, by October, was about 16%, after several consecutive months of easing. And likewise, the average Nigerian household is spending about 50% of their income on basic needs, compared to over 90% before the advent of the recent reforms. So the clear national objective is to achieve lower inflation for every naira, to retain its purchasing power, to have savings growing, because it is not through borrowing that we are going to get the investment, and we are going to come with a mass savings plan to allow Nigerians at all levels to save and invest in productive activity. The social protection net, the social safety net, is a commitment of Mr. President not to leave the poorest and the most vulnerable behind. And there continues to be a strengthening of direct payments to the least well-off in a transparent and accountable way. Let me, because the governor has already talked about digitization, he's already talked about power. You can't hear me? Yes. Apologies. I understand you couldn't hear me very well. Sorry about that. These technical things do happen. But I want to give us really the message that in terms of Imo State, where we are, unlocking Imo State's economic potential, it is vast. We have heard about what is there by way of resources. And what we need to do in terms of industrial clustering and manufacturing is develop light manufacturing, agro-processing, pharmaceuticals, packaging, building materials, and the like. And of course, to leverage the proximity of Imo to the huge markets in the southeast and south-south. Of course, As we've heard, the youth are key, and the digital economy is key for them. They are being enabled and empowered. They need to get into software development, business process outsourcing, creative industries, and AI-enabled services. This is the jargon of their time. And by giving them electricity, we are empowering them to be able to put in their best. His Excellency, the Governor, talked about agriculture being key. And the agriculture and the agro value chain is important. Processing, storing, branding, and of course, export. We heard about the cargo export terminal and services. Of course, all these add to ease of doing business. And as the investors here will tell you, you have to make it easy, you have to make it attractive for them so that they can come, invest, increase productivity, grow the economy, create jobs, and lift millions in Imo and elsewhere out of poverty. In conclusion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's say that Nigeria as a whole is no longer a country of latent, stagnant potential. It is, again, a country of rising opportunity. And therein lies the nexus that the governor talked about. When opportunity is there, business follows when you put the right framework in place. So our economy is growing. Our fiscal capacity is strengthening. Our states are empowered. They are resourced. They are given the funding that the law says they should get under the rules of Nigeria. Our social protection is expanding, which shows the empathy and the humane approach to governance of Mr. President, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Our digital, energy, and industrial foundations are being rebuilt. So Imo State stands at the intersection of human capital, entrepreneurial culture, and strategic geography given to it by God, as also man, because we talked about the extension, the dredging to the sea of the Imo River. So let us work together, federal, state, and even local governments and the private sector, to develop, and with our development partners, to turn the potential of Imo, turn the potential of Nigeria into measurable prosperity. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. This way, so you can go this way.